For the past year, I've been using AI agents to manage my entire GitHub development workflow. If you write code with AI, getting this workflow correct will make a real difference to the quality of your work. The best engineers I've worked with all have one thing in common. They follow a repeatable development workflow, and when you're working with AI coding agents, you need exactly the same thing. So in this video, I'll show you all of the different ways I use the GitHub CLI with AI coding agents like Codex or Claude Code. This is going to save you hours every single day in your development process. All of the resources we discuss in the video, I'm going to link for free in the description below, so let's get into it. So the project we're going to be building in this video is a command line interface tool for this project. So this is a web application that I built to manage and collaborate with AI agents. So if you're using things like Hermes or OpenClaw or any AI agents generally, this gives you a shared workspace where agents can create tasks, they can upload documents, you can manage everything all in one central place. You can upload files, whatever you need to do. So this is a collaboration space for you and your AI agents. But in order for AI agents to interact with this application, I need to build a CLI tool, which is what we're going to do now. So most developers are using GitHub to manage their projects. It's the place where all of the work happens in modern software development. It allows you to store your code safely, to collaborate with other people, to do code review, to do pretty much everything you need to do within your development workflow. So the first thing we need to do in order to give our AI agents access to GitHub is to install the GitHub CLI. This is really easy to install. If you're on a Mac, you can just do a brew install GitHub. You can also download it, and it also works obviously on other platforms as well. But once you have this installed and you've authenticated, you can then use this CLI tool to manage everything in your GitHub account. So the first thing we need to do now we've installed the GitHub CLI is to just double check it's working. If you're not already logged in, you need to type auth login, I believe, to log in, sign in with your account. Once you do that, you'll be able to run any kind of GitHub commands that you need to do. All right, so we're going to build a new repository here. We don't have anything currently on GitHub. So what we're going to do now is test out whether our AI agent can use this tool. So we're going to create a new GitHub repository where we can store our code, and we're going to initialize it with a few kind of defaults that we need. Can you go ahead and create a new GitHub repository, make it public, initialize it with a readme.md file and a Go module git ignore as well, and set the description to a CLI tool for managing your agent workspace. All right, so now hopefully the agent will be able to figure out that we need to use the GitHub CLI. I haven't actually prompted it here to use the GitHub CLI, but it generally checks to see if it's installed. Okay, perfect. So now the agent was able to use the GitHub CLI to create the repository for us and kind of set everything up. So if we go ahead and look at this in the browser, what we should see now is that we now have a public CLI repository, which we can go and take a look at. And the agent has set this all up for us. So we didn't do a thing here. The agent did all of this configuration setup for us. You can see here we added a description as well. So the next thing we're going to do is create a project board. So on GitHub, you can manage your project with a Kanban board. Essentially, this means you can create tickets for all of the work you want to do and store them on GitHub and manage your project that way. I really like this approach. It keeps everything in one place. And if you're working with AI agents, you don't want to be storing your tasks in Markdown files. You're going to get confused pretty quickly and you'll have a chaotic workflow. So what we're going to do now is ask the AI agent to set up a new GitHub project for us that we can use for this. Can you go ahead and create a GitHub project board and link it to this repo? I want to manage all of the tasks and tickets for this project. So now again, it should be able to use the GitHub CLI to go and configure this all for us. This is the kind of thing that's kind of annoying to set up by hand. So what you can see up here in GitHub is now we have a project. You can also see there's a bunch of other things we could have like agents, projects, wikis, etc. Let's take a look at the projects. You can see here we now have created a task board. All right, so the next thing we're going to want to do is break down our project and create all of the tasks and tickets we need to build this out. Before we create any tasks, we need to create a plan for what we need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and ask the agent to write the initial plan and tasks that we can then store on our project board. Can you go ahead and create a specification to help me build a Golang CLI tool? This is going to be a single binary install that allows AI agents to operate a project that I've been working on. You can find all of the code for the project where you can search to understand the API. I will give you a link to that project. Can you go ahead and write an initial specification for this CLI tool? So now I just need to give it a link to the repository where it can find the code. And so hopefully the agent is now just going to go and search through my code base for the application I'm building. It's going to look through the API and hopefully have a good idea about what we want to build. All right, perfect. So we've written a specification for what we need to build, a single binary Go CLI for AI agents and humans to operate a workspace. All right, so everything here looks fine to me. So what we're going to do now is break this work down into a series of tasks. Can you go ahead and break this work down into a number of tasks that we can then do one by one? And then once you finish breaking down the tasks, can you push them all to the GitHub project board? So now what you can see is that Codex has broken down the work into a number of tickets. So we've got 10 tickets in total. And what's really nice here is it's linked to everything. So it's given us a link to the project board and it's given us a link to all of the individual tickets. Can you go ahead and start working on the first task? Once you're finished, can you then open up a pull request on GitHub? So what's really nice about working in this way is as the agents start working on tasks, they can update the status of the ticket. So when you look at this project board, you can now see what's in progress, what's still to do. You get a really good high-level overview of your project. You could even run multiple different agents in parallel, working on different tasks all at the same time. But the great thing about tracking your work in this way is that it's very easy to see what's going on. You're not relying on markdown files on your local machine to see what's going on. This is just a regular development workflow that any engineer would follow if they were building out this kind of project. One useful tip which I like to use is I have an implementation skill and it always reminds the agent to review its work. So you can see here that the agent wrote the code initially, and then the implementation skill that I have, I'll link it in the description below, forces the agent to do another review on itself. So before it pushes it up to GitHub to be reviewed, it does a self-review first, and it's already caught an issue. You can see here, there's one particular bug. So it's just a really nice tip. Whenever you have a workflow like this, always ask the agent to review its own work, because chances are the first time these agents generate code, there's going to be some kind of issue. All right, so it looks like the agent is now done. So what we can do now is switch back over into the browser. And then if you look up here, you can see there's an open pull request. A pull request is the agent letting us review the code before we merge it in. And what's nice here is we didn't touch a thing. We didn't do any of this by hand. The agent did all of this for us. So we've got a draft pull request ready to review. What's going to happen now is because I have an automated code review set up, we can do a code review here on GitHub, which will allow us to find any further issues. If you're using GitHub, there are a bunch of tools you can use for code review. For example, you can use Copilot, so we can go ahead and request a review, which might be nice. So we've asked Copilot to review our code. I also have an automated review which should run Codex as well. But let's go ahead and review the code first. You might be able to see down at the bottom here that ChatGPT Codex is automatically configured to review the code. So whenever we open a pull request like this, I have ChatGPT Codex running a code review, and it's going to comment on the pull request. Any issues or bugs or problems it finds in the code, it will add a comment. All right, so what you can see now here is that we did a code review step and there are a bunch of issues. So the automated code review found 2 issues. I think it's 2. Yeah, so we've got 2 comments here that we need to address now. So what we're going to do is, again, go back to our agent and use the GitHub CLI to fetch these comments, address the issues, and fix them. Can you go ahead and fix the open comments and issues on this pull request? Only fix issues where you feel the issues need to be resolved. If you do not feel they need to be resolved, you can disagree. Pull down the comments using the GitHub CLI and fix any issues and then update the pull request. So I'm just going to give it a link to the pull request and then wait for Codex to go ahead and do that review. So now we've gone and addressed the feedback. One thing the reviewer forgot to do was actually comment on the issues that it found. So I'm going to ask it to use the GitHub CLI again to push a comment onto the review finding. Generally, if you're working in a team, this is a good practice. If someone opens an issue against your code, you always want to comment back and communicate what you're changing. Can you go ahead and reply to all of those issues in the comments so that we have a record? So you can see now, again, we're just using the GitHub CLI tool to do everything for us. We're not touching a thing on GitHub. We're just letting the agent run the entire workflow. So what you can see now is not only has the agent fixed the issues that were identified in the code review, it's also added a comment below. So you can see here, this was an issue that was found during code review. And now we've asked the agent to comment on the issue so that we can see what was fixed, and we can even reference where it was fixed as well. So this is just general good development practice, but we're allowing our AI agent to do all of this. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is, now that pull request is open, before we can actually finish this task, we need to go ahead and merge those changes back into the master branch. If you're not familiar with GitHub, you can open different branches where you make code changes, and then you merge them back into the main branch where it can be used. All right, so what we've done now is we've opened the change request, but what we need to do now is merge that change back in. So again, we're just going to use the agent to do this for us. We're also going to use the agent to clean up any stale branches, etc. So again, we're just using really good development hygiene, but we're allowing the agents to do all of the work for us. So now the agent has merged all of the changes. And if we go back to our task list, you can see now we've finished the first task. We just need to go through now and work through all of the other issues. I'm just going to blitz through this, finish all of the other issues. Then we're going to look at what else we can do with the GitHub CLI. So one of the other things you can do with the GitHub CLI, which is really, really powerful, is build your release pipeline. So because this is a command line interface tool that users can download and install on their local machines, what we want to do is prepare a release where users can download the latest version of the software. They can install it on their computers. And every time we do a release of our software, we want to have good release notes, basically telling people what happened in that release. So we're going to build a professional release pipeline, but we're going to be using GitHub Actions, which is a way to automate a lot of your daily workflow within GitHub. So let's copy this prompt. So what we're going to say is I want to prepare a release pipeline as a GitHub action. What we want to do is when we tag a version as a particular number, we want to check out the code, build binaries for different operating systems, name the binaries clearly, generate release notes, and create a GitHub release. So basically run the entire release pipeline. If you are building a software product, this is kind of thing that you'd want to do. And writing these GitHub actions, honestly, is pretty tedious and time consuming. So we're going to use the agent to do this as well. All right, so we've written a small plan. You can see how much work this is. So we need to create this release.yaml file. We need to have a build step. We need to think about the binaries we want to use. We need to think about these environment variables for the build. We need to generate the release notes, all of this stuff. This is very time consuming stuff to do by hand. We're getting the agent to do all of this for us. So we're making a design choice here. Do we want the raw binaries attached exactly as above? Or do we want a .gz? I think let's do an archive. Let's do an archive. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and build out this task. So what you'll notice here is we're not just using AI agents anymore for writing code. We're using AI agents to write the code, run the entire development process on GitHub, and also to do the entire release process. So we're building the code, we're developing the project, and then we're also managing the release lifecycle. This kind of stuff is quite time consuming. I absolutely love using AI agents for all of this kind of stuff. It just makes everything so much easier to set up. If you've ever done this kind of work by hand as a developer, you probably know how tedious it is to get all of this stuff correctly configured. It can take several hours if you're to do this by hand. Obviously, now that we're using AI agents to do this kind of work, it can happen in minutes. So this is such a great use of AI agents. Really laborious, time-consuming work we've completely eliminated by delegating to an agent. Okay, so what you can see here is the code that we're working on. You can see here we've got the various bits of code for the CLI. We've got our plan that we made. We've got our spec. We've got the main entry point for the CLI. And what we can do now is just pull the latest changes. So if you type the bang operator and then you do git pull, what you do here is you're just running a shell command directly. So we're already up to date. So everything looks good. And then if you go up here, you can see that we have this GitHub release file. So you can kind of see that this is the kind of thing that would be really painful to write by hand. You could imagine having to spend an afternoon kind of figuring out this build process, which I've done many, many times, right? We're now just using AI agents to do all of the build and infrastructure stuff for us. So we now have a GitHub action on release. So we should be able to run a release of like V1, and that should generate release notes. So let's go back into Codex now and run this. So now if you go over to our project, this is pretty exciting. We have now written an entire project end to end. So we've built an entire working CLI tool that people can use to operate the project we were talking about. But also now we have a full release. You can click on here. And this is absolutely amazing. So now we have really detailed release notes about what was changed. And you can see here now anyone can download and install our software. So what we did here today, we built an entire software project end to end. Not only did we use an AI agent to write code, we used it to manage the entire development process, from opening pull requests to reviewing our code, to addressing code review feedback, to even building an end-to-end release pipeline that is fully automated. I've worked as a software engineer for a long time, but I'm still absolutely blown away by how powerful these agents are. If you give an agent the right CLI tool, they can just do absolutely incredible things. You could even take this idea further, and in other videos, I think I'm going to take a look at how we can automate this end to end. So what we were doing here, we were very manually stepping through each step of the process. But what we could actually do in future is fully automate this pipeline now. Because you have a repeatable workflow, you can pretty much get the agent to automate this end-to-end cycle now. Doing this kind of work by hand as a software engineer, I've had to do it many times over the years. This stuff would have taken me hours to do by hand. So all of the YAML configurations, building these automations to publish your builds, it's relatively straightforward stuff, but it just takes a really, really long time. So anytime you find yourself doing this kind of mundane work, building release pipelines, deployment pipelines, stuff like that, have a think whether there's a CLI tool that would allow you to fully automate that with an agent. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful and maybe inspiring. You can take these ideas and go much, much further. This is only the beginning of the process. We can end-to-end automate this entire cycle. So setting up an entire project from scratch, running the entire build and deploy lifecycle end-to-end, all of this can now be automated. Once you have a repeatable process, it's so much easier then to give it to an AI agent to run because the steps are so clear. So figure out your workflow, give your AI agents the right tools, and let the AI agents run your pipeline. This is where the real leverage is going to come with these agents. It's not going to come from just writing code. It's from automating the entire cycle, iterating through, correcting issues, looking at feedback, improving themselves, writing tests, finding issues in the code, automating the release cycle. All of these things are where the real leverage lies, not just writing the code. I hope you found this video useful. I really enjoyed making the video, and if you've got any questions or if you would like me to make content on anything else that you've got on your mind, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. Remember to like and subscribe to help out the channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.